Is this thing on? Can you tell? Hey, it is. I'm not used to using one of these fancy things. First of all, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to come and share with you. Starla, I don't know how you do it. You up here and you're playing with your hands and your feet and you're singing and you're reading, and I'm like, I don't have any musical talent whatsoever. So all I can really do is talk, and sometimes I'm not sure if I do a very good job at that, getting my point across. But, you know, you're talking about out there at the trade show how rude and disrespectful and how things are in this country. And I see that a lot too, and talk about that and try to think, okay, how did we get to this point? And we talk about that a lot at our Cowboy church here recently. And one of the guys, it's really funny, Bill said this Thursday too, but one of the guys here a few weeks ago, he said, well, it's kind of like putting a frog in hot water. He said, you put a frog in hot water and he's just going to jump right out. But you put a frog in cold water and set him on the stove and turn the stove on and start warming that water up, he'll just sit there till you cook him. Of course, I've never tried that, but I actually had never even heard that till about probably 3 or 4 weeks ago from an older gentleman that comes to Cowboy Church, and then Bill shared that with me. And I thought, how ironic, I've never heard that saying before, and I've heard it twice here in just a short amount of time. Now, with me saying that, the way our country is going, the way our government is going, and I'm not going to get into politics and all that stuff, but if they change something, if we change something just a little at a time, each day, or maybe even each week or each year, we don't really realize it, do we? You know, I've gained probably 20 pounds since I've been in high school. And it's took 30 years to do it. Okay? Now think about this. All of us gain a little weight, seems like the older we get, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it just starts sticking a little bit at a time, doesn't it? And then you wake up one day and you're like, man, I got a little hanging over. I'm a little overweight. Now, this didn't happen overnight, did it? It's just those little bit at a time, and sooner or later it's like, now they're so far off what I call left and right. You know, I think of God being straight ahead, and Jesus being straight ahead, and getting off to the left and the right. It's very easy to get off to the right side here and start smelling the roses over here or whatever it is that's going on. But if we don't have a walk with Christ to pull us back to center, we're not going to be right in the center all the time. I don't care how hard we try, because nobody is perfect. And I think that's something that we as Christians need to understand and share with other people that maybe know Christ but are, when I say this, it's not disrespectful, but babies in Christ. Or maybe perhaps even those that don't even know Christ, because I really feel like I know some people that haven't accepted Christ because they don't think they're good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm just gracious that my Father God loves me because I ask Him to be my Lord and Savior. But so many, and I didn't understand this. Actually, I probably didn't understand this just until the last few years of my life. And I know Joy's going through a lot of stuff, and it makes you look at life, even though you've been a Christian for quite some time, it makes you look at life a whole different way, doesn't it? That song we were singing up here, just a couple, not the last one, but the one before that, did that make you think a little different than you did 5 years ago when you sang that? It does me too, even still yet today, even though I'm healthy and running stronger. Okay, that had nothing to do with what I was going to talk about today. It doesn't really matter, does it? When God lays something on your heart, just share it. You know, how many of you go to a ceiling football game or basketball game and you get into it and you're going to root and make some noise and say, that dadgum ref, that dadgum coach, why'd he call that? Okay, we'll pick on Christy. No, I'm not. Well, I'm not really, because all of us have things that we have a strong passion for. Sometimes it's because our kids are involved. Sometimes it's something that we was involved with, and we have a strong passion, and we share that. A lot of us. How many of us get that enthused about Christ? We all should, shouldn't we? It's way more important than whoever wins that football game or that basketball game, all the way up to the college level and professionals. But so many people I was coming in this morning and there was, and I'll tell you guys, I'm going to go home and trim some trees for our trail rides on this deal, so I'm just as guilty as anybody else. But I was coming in and there was an old tractor starting up down there at Chester, and boy, the old white smoke was a-flying. And I thought, God give us another day to live. I don't have a clue who that person is, and I'm not judging that person. But they probably got a day off from their work and their job in town, and they're going to enjoy it the way they want to enjoy it. But it looked to me like they probably wasn't driving that tractor to town to go to church. Now, I'm not saying we can't enjoy life and do things that we love. But what I really feel like, if we're going to enjoy life and do things that we love, let's go gather up this young man right here. And I praise you for coming to church today. I don't know who you are. Kobe?
House.
Taos?
House?
Yes. I praise you for coming to church. Did you come by yourself?
No, my grandma brought me.
Well, you came, but because you wanted to, right? You wasn't drug along by the ear or nothing. She didn't tell you. Okay.
He begs to come to church.
That's awesome. We need to praise this young man. We need to praise those young girls right there. We need to praise this guy right here for bringing his wife, or vice versa. But really, we need to praise and pat each other on the back for supporting each other and loving each other. And making him feel special, making you feel special, because you are. Each one of you are special in God's eyes. Sometimes we get up and we're like, man, I ain't got a friend in the world today because I pulled a bonehead, or maybe I'm a nerd because I was kind of a geeky little guy. I was a farm kid, and this is going to lead up to what I guess I'm going to talk about today. I grew up out there in the farm, didn't get to town, didn't have a whole lot of social skills by no means. Wasn't very talented like Starla up here playing, because I can't do none of that. I played a little football and got pretty decent at that, but I don't think you had to do much there except hit, I watched a movie, and I watched it last night. My wife brought it. I told her yesterday afternoon we was working out on these trail rides, and we had some help with us, but I was wore out. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was beat. It takes a long time. I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm not discouraging joy, but it takes a long time to get stamina back after going through that nasty old treatment, because they just wear you down, don't they? And you'll wear out a vehicle or two, probably, seems like. But every day is good, and I'll do everything I can, and my brain goes way further than my body will, doesn't it? A lot of us understand that. When I was your age, I didn't quite understand that, and that's okay. I'm glad that you're healthy and strong, because we need people like you. But I watched this movie last night, and it was God Save Our Farm. Has any of you ever heard of it? You have? Have you watched it? It's kind of a low-budget movie, it looked to me like, but it doesn't matter. That wasn't the point of it. The way that, I'll just share with you a little bit about this. There was a farmer, and I don't know where it was. It doesn't really matter if it was in Sealing or Iowa. But there was this farmer, and he walked with a cane, and so he had probably had an accident one time or another. He was probably in his 40s, maybe 50s, maybe. And his dad was probably in his, we'll say 70s. And his dad kind of acted goofy. Maybe they, kind of like what you said, kids think are crazy and goofy, don't they, sometimes? But we've seen a lot, especially you've seen a lot that I haven't. and have a lot more knowledge and wisdom, and I appreciate it more now than I did when, and I'm not picking on you, but when I was his age, or when I was these young girls' age. Well, anyway, this boy was 13 years old, and this is how the movie started out. They was having a funeral out there on the farm. They was burying an animal. They put up a cross and buried this animal, and a few minutes later, Grandpa goes to his son, and he said, I don't remember nobody's name in this movie because that's just me. Goes to his son, and he said, his son's 40-some, 50, we'll say 50, 70, 50, and 13. He said, he said, one of these days, that kid's going to have to grow up. He said, I know, he said, but give him some more time. He said, well, he's 13 years old, and we bury animals on this farm. We don't bury stuffed bears, teddy bears. So I was like, okay, because you didn't know what they was burying. They didn't show you. Well, then a little later in the movie, it shows a flashback, and his dad had run over this teddy bear with the lawnmower and just caught in the wedding everywhere, of course. Well, this young 13-year-old boy had hundreds of stuffed animals in his bedroom, and he used them for, what did he call it? But he had a special name for it, but like somebody to talk to, security type stuff, because he was kind of a nerdy, geeky, just didn't fit in. He was a farm boy. He had rubber boots, and he went and slopped the hogs and milked cows before he went to school. And some days, if he didn't get it done quick enough, he had to go to school in his overalls. And some of you can probably relate in some way or another. Well, it so happened that it had been in must have been dry several years, so the farm was not prospering and not being able to pay the bills. And there was some outsiders that was coming in, and they was buying up some real estate and probably going to develop it and doing different things like that. And they had bought some land adjacent to this farmer, and they knew they was in financial distress. So they was starting to put pressure on the bank to foreclose on this farm. Well, they just give them like a month. And this 13-year-old boy had a sister that was about 16 years old. And she was very pretty and very popular. And these people went to church. And they sang it in the choir, and just had, you could tell they was raised godly kids, and the whole family went to church. And they was singing at church one day, and the boy and girl got this idea. They had a picnic after church. They got this idea that, hey, we'll go over here and we'll sing, and we'll ask for donations so we can help Mom and Dad with the farm, make this farm payment. So they do, and people just start gathering around, and people that wasn't necessarily from their church. It was just people that was there at the park, evidently. And so be it that there was this guy there that was a producer, or, was into music. And he really liked how these two kids were singing, so he went up and gave the mom a card, and the next day, that night, this girl and boy got home, and they're like, hey, let's make a CD and sell it, and whatever money we sell it for, we'll give to Mom and Dad for the farm. And they're like, well, how do we do that? Well, they didn't know how to do it, know nothing about it, but they just knew they could sing, and people liked to hear them sing. So the next morning, when they got up to eat breakfast, their mom's like, hey, this guy gave me this card. He's a record producer, and so they got with him, and he kind of liked how they sounded, and he said, I can help you guys out, make a CD, but it's going to cost a lot of money to get started. They're like, well, we don't have enough money to buy groceries. There was one point early in the movie. I hope I'm not boring you, but I'm trying to tell a 2-hour-long story in just a short time. But they didn't have enough money to buy groceries, and they told them at the grocery store, you can't charge. You've got to pay whatever you got. That's all you can get. So you could tell that they was really struggling even to put groceries on the table. And these two young kids got it in their mind, their idea that they wanted to help out. Now, how many of you can think back of different things in your life that started meaning something to you, and it might have been an issue with your parents, or it might have been an issue with a friend, but you wanted to help out, but you really wasn't sure how you was going to help out or how to do it. Well, these two young kids decided they was going to do this, so they started pursuing it, and it was like, turned out this guy that came to him, give him the card, he was in cahoots with the guy that was trying to buy the land from the bank. So he set them up, more or less, and he took some of their money. They didn't have a whole lot, but they gave him a little bit to make this album. Or no, that's not right. He was going to charge them like $10,000 to do it. And his secretary overheard, and she's like, when they was leaving, she runs out. She goes, "I can do this in my basement at my house, but you can't tell nobody. And we can probably do it for $1,000 or $2,000." So they went and met there. Well, then this guy that started this got with the girl, and he says, your brother, he's kind of nerdy and he's holding you back. You got to get rid of him, and I'll work with you, but you can't have him sing with you because he's kind of a thorn and he's geeky. So then her and him got into it. "Well, I'm not singing with you because you're a nerd." And he's like, "I didn't say that." And so then they had a family little tiff, but they was really close before that. So this young boy heard this beautiful girl that was in his class, just a really pretty young lady that was in, I don't know, what grade are you when you're in 13? 7th grade, maybe? And she was singing to herself in the library, and he heard her, and he's like, "Wow, she can sing, So he's really shy, and I've said this so many times, but he's just a shy, backwards farm kid. And they picked on him a lot at school, and they showed this a little bit. But he had enough want to make this CD to help out his family to save the farm, that he calls this girl, and he asked her to sing with him on this CD. Well, she does. And so his grandpa starts hauling him and this girl to this studio, and they make this CD, and it's really good, and they do a little deal at their small town, and they raise like $7,000 or $8,000 selling these CDs. Well, they need $50,000. And so this boy is 13 years old, and he starts doing math, and he's like, "Man, we're going to have to sell this many CDs to make this much money, and we got to give the cut to the producers." And he said, "This just ain't going to work." And he's just got a few weeks to do this. So, somehow or another, there was a young boy that had moved to town, and his father was the real estate developer. So the real estate developer got his young boy involved, 13-year-olds. And he said, "Well, my dad used to sing. He knows somebody that makes CDs and produces." So he set him up with this other lady, and they went to this store in town or studio and went in, and this lady's like, "Well, it usually costs $9,000. It was almost to the T of how much they had raised. And she goes, "But you're doing this for a good cause, and I'll do it for $5,000. And Grandpa's like, "Oh, I don't know about this." Well, this little boy, 13-year-old boy, he's like, "Yeah, we got to do it, Granddad." And Granddad's like, "I don't know about this. I don't know. I don't feel right." He says, "It's okay, Granddad." He says, "Let's do it." So he gives her $5,000 cash. And he's supposed to come back the next day and pick up, I don't know, must have been thousands of CDs that she was going to burn and produce and get, so that they could raise this $50,000 in just a couple weeks. Well, they go back the next day, and the store's empty, and it says "for rent" on the front. It was all just a setup. And they scammed him. They took this 13-year-old boy's money. And his granddad's like, "Son," he said, "you just got to walk away from it." And he had shared some stories with him. His granddad had shared some stories with him, just like you've probably shared with your grandkids and kids and whatnot. And they're walking down the street, and he's just really, he's really not high on himself to start with. And all this trouble that's been, nothing's went smooth in this whole deal that he's trying to do and help out. Well, the next day they're going to have some kind of a concert. And so he goes and asks if him and his girl can sing at this concert. And maybe sell their CDs. That they still had a few CDs left. So they loaded them all up in the car, and they was going to let them do it. Load them all up in the car and was going to go to this concert and sing and see if they could sell these CDs. Well, now the guy that's the real estate guy hires another guy, and they steal his car with all his CDs when they pull up to the concert. So now they're at the concert, and his granddad gets knocked down, bust his head open. So now he's in the hospital. This all happens the same day as this concert. So his granddad's not there to support him, and they don't have any CDs to sell. So what's the use of him getting up there and singing? But he goes, his granddad said, son, they go take his granddad to the hospital and get him to kind of plugged in and get him feeling a little bit better. And his granddad said, son, he says, you just got to follow through with it. You just got to follow through with it. Don't worry about all that other stuff. So him and this little girl, they go up to this concert and they sing. And at the end of that deal, when he gets done singing, he's singing about, it's good, wholesome Christian singing, but he's singing about farm, raising kids on the farm, and it's just really kind of touching, really, because this 13-year-old kid has had so much want to. And all the obstacles that I shared with you that he had to overcome to even get to where he's at. And when he got there, he didn't have nothing to work with. But when it was over, they raised enough money that day to take care of their issue. So everything worked out. Now, how determined was that 13-year-old boy to do that? How many times did he get knocked down? I mean, that countless times. More times than I actually shared in my little story here. But he had faith. He could see, he had a vision in his mind. 13-year-old boy had a vision in his mind of what he wanted to accomplish and what it was for. And he didn't give up. But he also had Granddad to help him, because I'm telling you, I don't care how strong your faith is, how tough you think you are. You need somebody to walk with you at times. So it's always good to have a loved one or friend, isn't it?
Oh, God, yeah.
This little boy probably felt like he was so alone so much because of all them teddy bears. Remember how that started out? But he really wasn't, was he? That goes back to us. I think about myself when I was a kid, because I was kind of a little farm nerdy kid. I mean, I talked to my pigs, and I went and slept in the pig pen a few times because I didn't want to go home. I had 3 sisters. I didn't have no brothers. And that last one was born as another girl, and I ain't sleeping in the house no more. I wanted to go live with the pigs. Now, that's pretty bad, isn't it? But I thought that was the thing to do. How many of us would have enough faith in God to stick with that dream, that goal? When we first accept Christ, our Lord and Savior, that excitement that we have. You remember that? Do each one of you remember that? If you've accepted Christ, I'm pretty sure you remember that. We're going to get knocked down countless times in our life. You just got to gather up, knock the dust off, and go at it again. And if you don't have the willpower yourself, by yourself, somebody out there does. Somebody loves you. Find that person. Pray to God and Jesus and talk to them. And build a relationship with good people. Now, when I started talking and praising you, all them people that she was talking about in the trade show or Walmart or Woodward or Enid or Oklahoma City or Sealing or wherever it is, it all starts right here, believe it or not, and younger. But little by little, we've not twisted their ear or drug them, whatever it took to get them there when they was little, or made them feel loved, or made them feel like they wanted to learn something about that. We'll sit down on Sunday afternoon and watch a football game with them, won't we? Why don't we get up Sunday morning and drag them to church? I read a message here a while back, and this mom called her son and said, "Son, you got to get up, get around. You're going to be late for church." He said, "I don't want to go." She goes, "Well, I don't care if you want to go or not. You're going to get up and go." So she hangs up. She calls him back about 15 minutes later. "Son, are you ready for church?" "No, Mom, I'm not ready for church. I'm not going today." She goes, "Yeah, you're going to church." He says, "Mom, I'm 47 years old. And you can't call me and tell me what I'm going to do today." She goes, "Well, son, you might be 47 years old, but you're going to get up and go to church." He goes, "No, I don't want to go. They don't like me at church, and I don't like half of them." She goes, "Well, it don't matter if you like them or they like you. You're going to get up and go to church because you're the preacher." You know, maybe we needed some more of that stuff right there. Mama need to drag them kids to church. Hopefully before they're 47 years old to get it learned. But anyhow, Hebrews 11:1. We'll read that. I'm not even going to go there. We're just going to read this. Hebrews 11:1. If anybody wants to go there, they are welcome to, because I'm liable to chop this thing up so bad you won't know what I'm talking about. Now faith is being sure of what we hope for, and certain of what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commanded for. By faith we understand that the unwise was formed as God commanded, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. By faith, we can't always see the end result, can we? This 13-year-old boy had no idea how this was all going to turn out, did he? There's no way he could have. But he had enough faith to stay with it. We can't see God, can we? Just like I can see each one of you sitting in this room. That's one reason he sent Jesus here on earth, isn't it? Jesus was just like you and I, each one of us. He ate and drank, slept, bled, sweated, worked, just like each one of us. That's why he sent Jesus Christ, so that we could see somebody, so that we could get an understanding that he was just like us, just like you. That's why he sent Jesus. One more illustration and then I'll quit. When you drive down the road or drive into town and you see this new building getting constructed, or maybe remodeled or something, and you look at that, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? There's some jobs there, and somebody's creating a new building or a new business or a new home, right? So somebody had to create that, didn't they? Somebody had to have a vision about that home or that vision.